Thank you, Paul. It's lovely to be here, and Happy New Year to everybody. In some ways, you stole my thunder because I was going to ask, have you thought about the role minerals play in your life? And as Paul said, in your energy, it's your energy source. Potassium is essential for your living cells. It carries waters into the cells, and we need that in our daily diet. And with modern agriculture, the intense agriculture, we are depleting our arable soils, so we really do need these additional minerals to produce our food. And one of those, importantly, is potassium and also sulphur. So I'm here to talk about mining for farmers. The Trigg Mining is a modern, purpose-driven company. We are here to build mines communities can be proud of. We are targeting sulphate of potash, or SOP, or potassium sulphate, or K2SO4. It has many names which all refer to the same thing, in the hypersaline brine waters of the eastern goldfields of Western Australia. The minerals are already dissolved in the water. So we're looking for a water resource, hypersaline, supersaturated with salts, particularly important in potassium and sulphate. We have over 1,500 square kilometres of strategic tenure across two key sulphate of potash projects, Lake THROSSELL, which is where Paul's talking about our drilling program at the moment, which we anticipate a maiden resource, and Lake RASON, which we announced a maiden resource there in March last year. From a product demand perspective, there are three key global megatrends converging to drive demand: expanding world population, reducing areas of arable land, and increasing use of fertiliser to support increasing yields to feed our growing population. We are also seeing a change in our agricultural practices where we're considering the soil sustainability and the importance of maintaining the soil pH balance and nutrient balance for optimal yields. All this leads to increased demand for premium fertilisers such as sulphate of potash. And at Trigg, we're looking to develop potentially a long-life, low-cost primary source of sulphate of potash. Corporate overview. The key points here: the top 10 shareholders hold about 30% of the company. With 80 million shares on issue, we have a market cap of just $10 million, and we already have a resource and another one on the way. We have $3 million cash in the bank, so well funded for the current exploration program. This makes Trigg a compelling investment case. So where are we? Eastern Goldfields is a pretty big region, but if you're looking at this map, you can see geographically our two projects, Lake THROSSELL and Lake RASON. Lake THROSSELL sits on the Great Central Road, which is a really important piece of infrastructure. It's considered the world's longest shortcut, and it's a road that goes through Western Australia, the Northern Territory into Queensland. Because it's a potential trade route, the state governments are upgrading this, and bitumisation is underway, and we anticipate that we'll have bitumen up to our mine gate from Laverton by the time we're in production. Lake THROSSELL is a high-grade discovery. We have been out there drilling into the surface of the lake, and now we're drilling deeper. All those results, our highest grade so far is 14,800 milligrams per litre. That is a high-grade outcome. And at Lake RASON, we have a 6 million tonne SOP resource already with potential to expand that as well. So with over 1,500 square kilometres, it's a nice, neat package. We don't have an excessive amount of exploration expenditure to maintain our tenure. These are real projects that have real resources. We also have a very experienced team. I've got two fantastic hydrogeologists that have been in this space for many years as the sulphate of potash industry has been developing in Western Australia, and we are all really passionate about building this and doing great work. So why sulphate of potash? Well, I have talked about that a little bit, given that we really need potassium in our diets and potassium in our agriculture. But all these things in this collage here require sulphate of potash, and sulphate of potash cannot be substituted for any of these products. So what is it? Well, potassium is one, and is a main component of it. It's essential for all living things. It promotes resistance to disease, drought and frost in the plants. It improves the quality, the taste and appearance. So we all know, we've all had like a flowery, flavourless tomato and a really juicy, succulent tomato. And the difference is the nutrients in which they're able to grow from. It is required in large quantities for proper plant growth and optimal crop yields. Sulphate, the other component in the potassium sulphate, is necessary for chlorophyll and plant proteins and increases crop yields and quality of the product. So it's a nutrient that has known to leach trace elements. The alternative potash in the market, which we hear about quite a lot, is the muriated potash. This is a bulk commodity. It is cheaper, it is more abundant, but it contains 50% chloride. And that affects the pH balance of the soils and especially chloride-sensitive crops. And it also contains no sulphate. So it's an inefficient form of potassium, but it is a bit cheaper because it is so abundant and produced predominantly in places like Canada, Russia and Belarus. Steady demand growth is driven by the global megatrends that I've mentioned. We have a growing world population, the arable land is reducing, and fertiliser application rates need to expand and are continuing to expand. And all this is going to continue to expand and drive demand for that 7 million tonne per annum market for this niche product, sulphate of potash. And for a sustainable project, it also needs to be a low-cost producer through most of its life, or at least in the low part of the cost curve. And what we have is a really interesting makeup in the market in that only a third of it comes from these brine sources. The other sources to manufacture sulphate of potash, because we just cannot produce enough of it for global demand, is something called the Mannheim process, where they purchase sulphuric acid, muriated potash, put it into a blast furnace, heat it to around 800 degrees Celsius, and then produce a byproduct called hydrochloric acid, which just can't be stored. It's a very corrosive acid and doesn't have anywhere near the market of what sulphuric acid would have. So this creates a high price floor in that economic cost curve, where the brines, with their natural endowment of solar evaporation, these projects look like a salt mine, big ponds, big evaporation rates, and produce it using the natural energy source of the sun. So Trigg's projects. So this is a photograph of Lake THROSSELL, and it's only a part of Lake THROSSELL. These are huge areas. On this main tenement at THROSSELL, it's about just over 300 square kilometres. All up, we have over 1,000 square kilometres there. These projects are formed through the dissolution of minerals from the rocks over millions of years. They've come in over big drainage systems, around about 500 square kilometres there at Lake THROSSELL. And that's draining the Gibson Desert, essentially. So all this water comes down in these ancient paleo channels and riverbed systems, dissolving the minerals and then concentrating through the high evaporation rate that we have in the desert, creating the salt lakes and these channel systems. So getting to THROSSELL is a high-grade discovery, and we're very excited about the potential of this because, as I said, this is a big area. It's over 1,000 square kilometres. We've got over 70 kilometres of interpreted paleo valley extent, and that whole valley is potentially mineralised with this brine. It is saturated just below, so you can see the geologist in this photograph here digging a hole with a shovel. That is to get to the water table, which is just within that hole. So it is super saturated. The lake bed itself has a large volume of water sitting just below the surface, and then the valley underneath it as well. We have these high-grade results, and really consistently as well throughout the programs that we've done. We've done some hand auger. This rotary program, which is in this photograph here, drilled down to about 6 metres through the lake bed, and now we're drilling down to about 130 metres with the air core program. They have all returned, all the assays to date, over 90% of those have returned results of over 9,000 milligrams per litre SOP, making this a high-grade project. Right now, the guys are out there working in the heat of summer and the environmental conditions of that, because we are so excited to continue drilling this program. The Air Core program is targeting that paleo valley. You can see that on this side with the gravity image. It looks like a pretty creative drawing actually, but what it's showing you there in blue, outlined by the red dashed line, is what we anticipate the valley to look like based on 2 geophysics surveys that we did last year. That is driving our placement of the holes. We've drilled about 16 holes in December before we did have a rain event, which just postponed the program for a couple of weeks before we could get back out there. And we're now currently drilling the additional up to 22 holes to confirm what the geophysics is telling us. And that'll provide sufficient information with the superficial drilling with the rotary and the hand auger. That'll give us enough information to produce an inferred resource. In the meantime, because we've been waiting a while for this, we're too excited to talk about the potential extent of what we've got. We anticipate releasing an exploration target in the next couple of weeks. So at Lake Rason, this is part of our bigger story with a potential production centre at THROSSELL. Lake Rason may be a potential satellite project. We've already identified 6 million tonnes in that main tenement there that you can see with the drill holes that we've conducted over the last couple of years there. The tenement immediately to the west was granted in October, so we've got potential there to expand expand the resource. And it appears to be the higher grade end, so we may be able to increase the grade as we do that as well. So all up, this is talking about a long life, low cost SOP production hub centred around Lake THROSSELL with Lake Rason as a potential additional feed for that project. And as I said earlier, pretty compelling market capitalisation for Trigg. This is the beginning of the story. Our peers, Callium Lakes and Salt Lake Potash, are both in the construction phase and anticipate commencing production this year. We've got all the exploration upside. We're drilling. We're waiting for more tenements around THROSSELL to be granted to expand on what we're doing there at the moment. And at a market cap there of $10 million and 3 in the bank, I think we've got a good story to tell in future months. So all up, it's about a strong global market and demand fundamentals. We all eat food, and even during the pandemic, many of us have admitted to putting on a few extra kilos, so we've all been eating even more food. It is a low-risk jurisdiction in Western Australia. It is in our backyard. It is a strategic land holding with 100% rights, so we have no third-party royalties. Over 1,500 square kilometres of tenure. We are well supported by infrastructure. We've got road, we've got access to rail, there's airports and airstrips nearby, and even 2 gas pipelines in the vicinity of our projects. Lake THROSSELL is a rapidly evolving high-grade discovery with results to come. Lake Rason is a 6 million tonne inferred resource, and again with potential to expand that and possibly increase the grade. We are highly leveraged to growth in that previous slide. And we have a really motivated and experienced team, absolutely determined to deliver value for our shareholders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keren. We just had a couple more questions come in then. One of the questions that people are asking is, what will be the share price catalyst going forward? Can you give us a quick assessment of that?
Well, the current drilling program, we'll have assay results coming out from that. We'll have an exploration target the next couple of weeks and an inferred resource following the assessment of all those results. So lots of news flow coming. So
you have assays, in the lab now? Is that the way it is, or they're just starting to move in there?
As soon as we finish the drilling program, they'll be in the lab, and then a few weeks after that.
So they'll all go in one batch, do they?
Yep.
Do you expect them? We all know the labs are busy, and the other presenters today have told us that. Do you expect some delay in a turnaround, or?
Fortunately for us, we're not in the gold queue, so we anticipate a few weeks after they go into the lab. They've been taking about 3 to 4 weeks for us.
And what's the outlook for the potash price? How does the price that you could expect to get play into a global market scenario?
It's a very steady market because it is supported by that price floor. What I've seen over the past few years that I've been involved is prices around $550 a tonne. In Australia, the price that I've seen quoted that Western Australian farmers are paying is over $1,000 Australian dollars per tonne.
So that would leave you with a very robust margin.
Quite possibly, yep.
And obviously there's a transport saving to be had there too. It's a vast state. Would you expect to sell it all domestically, i.e. in Western Australia?
I expect we're going to have a mix. We don't have a huge demand for SOP currently in the horticultural market, which is primarily where it's used. But I've had so many conversations with broadacre farmers that are really passionate about their soil integrity and their sustainability of their practices, and they would much prefer to use sulphate of potash than muriate. So I really do see a potential to expand that market in Western Australia. And then the East Coast market is a much larger market around the horticultural products. And globally, this is a really clean, positive product that, you know, I am fielding calls at this really early stage from international buyers.
Great. Thank you very much, Keren.
Thanks, Bob.